What is going on, everybody? My name is Cameron and welcome to the very beginning of one of the biggest events of 2016, Civil War 2. Now this is issue 0, so this is like the prologue before issue 1, you know, kind of setting up the events of issue 1. So I figured I'd wait to review this issue until issue 1 released, and of course issue 1 released yesterday, so I'm reviewing this now, then reviewing issue 1 straight after this. Now this event is going to be based around Iron Man and Captain Marvel going head to head, and of course heroes choosing sides. So in the first Civil War it was Captain America vs Iron Man, this time it's Iron Man vs Captain Marvel, and the whole basis of this story is that there is an Inhuman who can predict the future, and Captain Marvel is all about seeing the future and stopping it before it happens, and Iron Man is all about not messing with the future and letting the future play out as it should and then dealing with the consequences afterwards. Now, if any of you guys watch the Flash TV series, you'll know that if you try to stop something before it happens and change the future, then worse consequences come along later up the road. But both characters, Iron Man and Captain Marvel, have very, very good points as to why their reasoning is like this, like that, and you'll probably shimmy between both sides throughout the series. But overall, I think I'm going to be sticking with Iron Man. But anyway, now that I've given you a little bit of a basis as what's going down or what's going to go down, I think it's time to get into the review. So let's go. Okay, so at the beginning of the issue, we are in New York City courtroom, and it seems like this person called Mr. Powers has obviously served his sentence for his crimes, and now they're like trying to put him back in jail for something that he hasn't done, all this crazy stuff. But that's besides the point. It really doesn't matter about him. What matters the most is the speech that is being given throughout the courtroom, and that's about having someone commit the crime, then deal with the consequences afterwards, have the person have the chance to rehabilitate themselves, and see them turn their life around, instead of putting someone in jail for just having a thought. And the whole point of that is the Inhuman that can see the future, which is what this whole event is based around, with Captain Marvel and Iron Man facing off against each other, can only see possible futures. And say like this Inhuman sees the future of someone murdering someone, Captain Marvel is on the side of getting this guy before he murders this person. But the point is, that's only a possible future. So the guy that murders someone might not actually end up murdering anyone, because that's in a different future. But Captain Marvel doesn't want to take any chances, whereas Iron Man is on the side of waiting for the crime to happen first. Because if you think about it, if a guy doesn't end up murdering anybody, but Captain Marvel jails him anyway, then technically she's jailed an innocent man. And that's where the conflict between the two characters comes from. Now, of course, I'll talk about this more when we actually get into Civil War issue 1, which I'll be reviewing after this. But until then, let's head on over back to this issue at hand on the screen. Now really quickly, I'd like to say that courtroom panel page at the beginning of the issue, I really like how that foreshadows what's to come in Civil War. Someone being trialed for a crime before they've even done it, and that's just awesome foreshadowment for the reader. So good. So we've recently just saw that Rhodey, Iron Man's best friend aka War Machine, has been offered the job of presidency. Because after all, he can't be War Machine forever. And obviously that's a decision that he's going to have to decide himself. But now we're joining all of these characters sat in the middle of a field waiting for this cloud, aka known as the Terrigen. And basically what happens with this cloud is, when you get caught in it, if you have an Inhuman DNA within you, then this cloud activates it. So technically, you're a normal human until you get stuck in this cloud. And then once you get in this cloud, it activates that DNA within the person and puts them in this cocoon. And when they emerge from this cocoon, they are Inhuman. Very similar to what happened with Gloriana in the recent Spider-Man 2099 comics. Now what I love about this comic and what we've just seen on the panels in front of us was that guy that was called, I think it's Ulysses or something like that, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. We are seeing him become the Inhuman that can see the future, and it's just so awesome because that is like a turning point in his life. It's almost like Barry Allen becoming the Flash, like it's his destiny. And you feel like you've been waiting for this kid to get his powers his entire life, and now it's time. Or it kind of gives off that vibe anyway, it's really awesome. But now we go over to Captain Marvel, and it seems that this kid that's just got these powers, or that's going to get these powers when he emerges from this cocoon, is pretty much all that Captain Marvel has been waiting for. Now obviously she doesn't know that this has happened, but her main concern is stopping a crime before it happens, a lot like Minority Report with Tom Cruise. And this is what I mean about jumping sides from Iron Man to Captain Marvel, from Captain Marvel to Iron Man. You will constantly switch from side to side because they all have very, very good points. Like Captain Marvel, you can see in her face has genuine concern, but it's all for the right reasons. Very similar to how Tony Stark was in Avengers Age of Ultron, wanting to have the possibility of ending all things, having a protective armor around the world. Metaphorically, of course. Even possibly having a civilian life one day, not having to worry about being a superhero and protecting the world, etc. And let's just say Captain Marvel is about to get what she wished for. This is probably round about the right time to point out that the art in this comic is actually really refreshing to look at. Like, it's semi-realistic, but it's not too realistic to make it jarring to look at too long. So I have to praise the artist on this book, and I'm not sure whether it's Ponce or Capel, is it? But I'm pretty sure Ponce does the colouring. I'll probably check that later on. But either way, it's awesome. Now, what I also like about this comic is that we're kind of visiting some of the main characters, well, some of the major players that are going to be in the actual Civil War issue 1 comic next. And we're sort of seeing where their lives are at the minute. So for example, Captain Marvel was already thinking about stopping crimes before they happen, before we even get into Civil War. And then we go over to She-Hulk, and she actually lost that case at the beginning of the comic. You know, the one with Mr. Powers that had a thought of murdering someone but never actually did it at the beginning of the issue? Yeah, she lost that case, so she's most likely going to be on Iron Man's side, because technically that courtroom have just put away an innocent man because he didn't murder anybody or anything like that. So that scenario, which was foreshadowing Civil War coming up, is already conflicting She-Hulk as it is. So it's going to be interesting to see how her character plays out when Civil War kicks off in the next issue. Now, going back over to all the people that were stuck in these cocoons in the cloud that gave everyone Inhuman DNA powers, that activated everyone's Inhuman DNA, we saw 2 people. We saw the guy that's going to have the visions of the future, and we also saw this girl that he actually really liked, and she comes out of the cocoon looking like a flying demon. So it seems like she drew the short straw, but it's going to be interesting to see whether she comes back into it later on. Like, maybe she'll become a major villain later on in the series or something like that. That would actually be really interesting. Kind of reminds me of Spider-Man and Silk, you know, like how Peter Parker got bit by one spider, and then Silk got bit by the exact same spider. Kind of reminds me of that, where these 2 guys have kind of got their powers in the same situation, but she seems pretty evil and he seems to be able to see the future. So obviously, as we're getting towards the end of the comic, he begins to see the future of New York being obliterated, and he has no idea what's going on. But I love the emotion that just kind of surrounds everything. Like, he seems to be put in this hellhole, and the fear in his eyes and just how he doesn't know what's going on is awesome. It really puts you into that situation as the reader. And most of all, it seems like he sees major events that are going to happen in the future. Oh, it's so awesome, guys. What did you think? Let me know in the comment section below, because that is the end of the issue. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It was super nice to catch up with all of the characters, seeing where they are in this Civil War story before it actually begins. And it's interesting to see how some of the things that are in this comic are kind of foreshadowing what's to come. Like, the court put someone away that was technically innocent, and then what's to come is Captain Marvel also putting people away before they commit murder. So that's also a thing that's going to happen. So we'll just have to see how it plays out, guys. That is the end of this review. What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button on this video. Follow me on Twitter to hear about all the comic reviews that are going to be uploaded, and if I have any problems, etc. And for comic code giveaways as well. So the link is in the description for that. Don't forget to follow me on my Facebook page for all the latest in comic book news and updates. And guys, if you like what you see, if you like these videos, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all next time.
Halfway up to space.